Right. Here is something that does not come up when you are standing in the coffee aisle at Tesco. When coffee beans are roasted, a chemical called acrylamide forms. It is a natural byproduct of heat meeting certain amino acids and sugars in the bean. The European Food Safety Authority, EFSA, classifies acrylamide as probably carcinogenic to humans. That is the same classification as red meat. In 2017, the EU introduced benchmark levels for acrylamide in food under Regulation 2017-2158. The benchmark for roasted coffee is 400 micrograms per kilogram. For instant coffee, it is 850 micrograms per kilogram. In a 2023 Stuttgart laboratory study, between 5 and 15% of instant coffee products tested exceeded those benchmarks. There is more. Robusta beans, the cheaper variety used in most instant coffee and budget blends, contain 35 to 45% more acrylamide than Arabica, which means the cheapest box of instant on the bottom shelf is also the one most likely to be pushing acrylamide levels highest. And the average Irish adult is drinking 3 cups of coffee a day. Nobody on the packaging is telling you any of this. So let us go through the 8 brands most people in Ireland are buying and explain what you are actually getting for your money. Number 1. Nescafé. Nescafé is made by Nestlé, a Swiss company that buys more than 800,000 metric tons of green coffee every year from more than 20 countries. It is the most recognized coffee brand in Ireland and one of the top 3 sellers in every Irish supermarket. Nescafé Classic and Gold contain 100% coffee. That part is fine. But the Nescafé Cappuccino sachets that sit right beside them on the shelf contain only 13% soluble coffee. The rest is glucose syrup, coconut oil, lactose, and powdered milk. You are paying cappuccino prices for a product that is mostly sugar and fat with a bit of coffee added, and that is before we get to the supply chain. In 2019, Reporter Brazil documented conditions resembling slavery at the Cedro II farm in Minas Gerais state in Brazil. That farm was Nespresso certified at the time. Workers were doing 17-hour shifts. Nespresso stopped sourcing from the farm after the story broke. Between 2011 and 2019, 442 victims of modern slavery were liberated from Brazilian coffee farms linked to the Nestlé supply chain. Those are not allegations. Those are government records. In March 2020, Channel 4 dispatches filmed children under the age of 13 working 40-hour weeks on Nespresso-certified farms in Guatemala. In December 2024, China Labor Watch investigated 26 farms in Yunnan province supplying Nestlé and found child labor and daily wages of between $11 and $28. These investigations are years apart and on different continents. They are not isolated. Nestlé pledged zero deforestation in its supply chain by 2020. That deadline passed. They extended it to 2022. That deadline also passed. They are now pledging 2025, with a Coffee Watch report from October 2025 documenting more than 312,000 hectares of intact Brazilian forest cleared for coffee cultivation since 2001, including farms linked to major multinationals. Number 2. Kenco. Kenco stands for the Kenya Coffee Company, which is where it started in Nairobi in 1923. By the time it reached your supermarket shelf, it had passed through Kraft, then Mondelez, then JDE, then JDE Peet's. This corporate consolidation changed the brand. In August 2025, Keurig Dr Pepper announced the acquisition of JDE Peet's for $18 billion United States dollars. So the Kenyan coffee brand is now ultimately owned by the same company that makes Dr Pepper, headquartered in Plano, Texas. JDE Peet's sources approximately 8% of all green coffee traded on Earth. It is the world's largest coffee company by volume. That scale makes supply chain oversight almost impossible, and the record shows it. A 2016 Danwatch investigation found slavery-like working conditions at farms in Minas Gerais, supplying both Nestlé and JDE. JDE stated at the time that they could not rule out forced labor in their supply chain. That admission is notable, but it is not a solution. In April 2025, Coffee Watch and Aid Environment published a satellite analysis identifying 6 farms directly linked to JDE's Brazilian supply chain that had cleared 4,782 hectares of native vegetation after the December 2020 cutoff date set by the European Union Deforestation Regulation. The Coffee Watch analysis suggests Kenco's parent is not in compliance. Number 3. Lavazza and Carte Noire. These are technically 2 brands, but they are the same company and share the same story, so they get 1 entry. Lavazza is an Italian family business founded in Turin in 1895 and still owned by the founding family in the 4th generation. It acquired Carte Noire, a French brand, from JDE in February 2016 for approximately €700 million after EU antitrust regulators forced the divestiture. So when you buy Carte Noire in an Irish supermarket, you are buying a product of a 130-year-old Italian coffee dynasty that picked up a French brand as a regulatory cast-off. Neither of those things is inherently wrong. What is wrong is the pods. In April 2025, the UK Advertising Standards Authority banned Lavazza television and digital ads for describing their coffee capsules as compostable. The ruling found that the claim was misleading because composting those pods requires industrial composting facilities that maintain temperatures above 60 degrees Celsius for weeks at a time. A standard home compost bin does not get anywhere near that. The pods look like green-labeled environmental progress, but if they go to your general waste bin, they end up in landfill, where they break down anaerobically and produce methane for potentially hundreds of years. The regulator did not fine Lavazza. It banned the specific ads and required the company to clarify the composting conditions in all future claims. That is the outcome of catching a multinational making a false environmental claim, a revised ad campaign. Number 4. Nespresso. This one deserves its own entry because the POD problem is bigger than any one brand. An estimated 60 billion coffee capsules are produced globally every year. About 29,000 of them go to landfill every single minute. In Ireland, the estimated annual consumption is over 780 million capsules, and less than 20% of aluminium pods are properly recycled according to mywaste.ie. Most Irish local authorities do not have the collection or processing infrastructure for empty coffee pods. Nespresso claims a global recycling rate of 32%. Independent environmental researchers estimate the actual figure is closer to 5%. In the United States, Keurig was fined $1.5 million by the Securities and Exchange Commission for making false statements about the recyclability of K-Cups. At the time, Keurig's annual revenue was approximately $15 billion. You do the maths. And then there is what is in the coffee itself. A 2025 University of Birmingham study found approximately 43 microplastic particles per litre in hot coffee brewed through plastic coffee pods. A 2025 market study found that capsule coffee had the highest pesticide contamination rate of any coffee format tested, at 63.6% of samples, primarily orthophenylphenol. That is not a banned substance, but it is a fungicide, and you are drinking it. Nespresso is owned by Nestlé. Everything in number 1 applies here as well. Number 5. Douwe Egberts. Douwe Egberts was founded in the Netherlands in 1753, which makes it one of the oldest coffee brands in the world. It is owned by JDE Peet's, the same group as Kenco, meaning the Keurig Dr. Pepper acquisition applies here. So Douwe Egberts, like Kenco, is now ultimately controlled by the same American company that makes 7-Up. The brand carries Rainforest Alliance certification, which sounds reassuring. But independent researchers say this certification can be weak in practice. A 2023 analysis by Corporate Accountability Lab found that the standards have been progressively diluted, and that the framework uses an assess and address model. That means even documented child labor does not automatically trigger decertification. The certification can be removed, assessed, and then the farm can be recertified. This is the same certification system that operated on the Kenyan Unilever estates documented in the BBC Africa Eye investigation we covered in the T video. According to research published in the Journal of Fair Trade Studies, in 8 of the 10 major coffee-producing countries, the average coffee farming household income remains below the poverty line regardless of certification status. Coffee farmers globally earn 7 to 10% of the retail price of the coffee they grow. In Brazil, farm workers earn less than 2%. Your €4.50 bag of dough Egberts yields less than 45 cents to the people who grew it. Number 6. Robert Roberts. Here is the one that is going to sting a bit, because Robert Roberts is positioned on every shelf and in every petrol station as a product of Irish heritage. The branding, the tone, the Dublin origin story going back to 1905. It is one of the most recognisably Irish names in the coffee aisle. Robert Roberts was founded in 1905 by members of two Irish Quaker families, the Goodbodys and the Wardells, who also founded Goodbody's Mill and several other Irish enterprises. That history is real. What happened next is less proudly advertised. In October 2014, DCC Public Limited Company sold Robert Roberts to Valeo Foods for €60 million. Valeo Foods, headquartered in Dublin, then grew aggressively through acquisitions. In 2021, Valeo itself was acquired by Bain Capital for over €1.7 billion. Bain Capital is a private equity firm headquartered in Boston, Massachusetts. It was co-founded by Mitt Romney. So the wholly Irish coffee brand on the shelf of your local Centra is, when you follow the ownership structure to its conclusion, ultimately controlled by a US private equity firm. The beans are still roasted and packed in Dublin, which is something. But the profits, when they eventually move to Boston. Number 7. Lidl and Aldi own brand coffee. Both Lidl and Aldi have built out serious coffee ranges in recent years. Lidl's main brand is Belarom. Aldi sells Alcafe and Specially Selected. The prices are genuinely good, and some of the ranges carry Fairtrade certification. But here is the broader problem that applies to every budget coffee on every supermarket shelf, own brand or otherwise. The cheapest coffee is almost always made from Robusta beans, which, as we covered at the start, contain significantly more acrylamide than Arabica. Ground Robusta is also more susceptible to ochratoxin A contamination, the mold-related mycotoxin that the EU tightened maximum limits on in January 2023 precisely because it was showing up too frequently. A global meta-analysis in 2022 found ochratoxin A present in 58% of all coffee products tested. The budget ranges also tend to have the least supply chain transparency. Neither Lidl nor Aldi Ireland publishes a full breakdown of the farms, cooperatives or exporters their private label coffee passes through. The Fairtrade logo on some products is a start. But as the research shows, Fairtrade certification alone guarantees a minimum purchase price for producers, not a living wage for the workers who pick the beans. Only 25% of coffee produced under Fairtrade certification is actually sold under Fairtrade terms. The other 75% of that certified production gets sold into the conventional market at conventional prices. There is also an important note for Aldi shoppers. In 2024, the FSAI issued a recall for Maisha cold brew coffee sold at Aldi Ireland for incorrect storage labelling. That was a cold brew product, not roast and ground, and it was a labelling issue rather than contamination. But it is a reminder that the FSAI monitoring system depends on brands being transparent about their own processes. Number 8. Coffee pods. And the certification system that is not protecting anyone. This final entry is not about one brand. It is about a pattern that runs through almost every product on this list, and understanding it will change how you read every food label going forward. Coffee Watch, an independent research NGO, tracks labor violations and environmental damage across the global coffee supply chain. In September 2025, they published findings that Brazil's largest coffee cooperative, Cooksupe, which handles roughly 10% of Brazil's total coffee exports and has supply relationships with Nespresso, Starbucks, and JDE, was linked to new slave labor cases. 4 member farms were added to Brazil's official dirty list, the government register of employers caught using slave-like conditions. 36 workers, including a teenager, were found in those conditions on those farms in 2025. The US Department of Labor lists coffee from 15 countries as produced with child or forced labor. That list includes Brazil, Ethiopia, Guatemala, Côte d'Ivoire, Honduras, and Colombia. These are not fringe origins. They supply most of the coffee on your supermarket shelf. And here is the final number that puts all of this in context. The average Ethiopian coffee farmer earns approximately $900 per year. Women working in Ethiopian coffee processing warehouses earn around $20 per month. A standard 500-gram bag of ground coffee retails in Ireland for between €4 and €7. The farmer who grew those beans receives, on average, less than 50 cents of that retail price, certification logo or not. So what do you actually do with all of this? The honest answer is this. If you are buying from any of the 8 brands on this list, you are buying from a supply chain with documented problems. Some of those problems are chemical, some are human, some are environmental. They are not equal in severity, but they are all real, and they are sourced from named investigations and EU regulatory findings that you can look up yourself. The alternative that comes up consistently in the research is to buy from a small, traceable Irish roasting operation where the sourcing is published, and the beans are Arabica, not Robusta. Ariosa Coffee in Ashbourne, County Meath is a genuine small batch Irish roaster that has been operating since 2003 with full traceability. Java Republic, also Irish owned, publishes farm level sourcing information. 3FE in Dublin publishes direct trade prices. These are not perfect, but they are the difference between a supply chain you can see and one you cannot. If you can only make one change, switch from instant to whole bean or ground Arabica. Lower acrylamide, better traceability, and honestly, better coffee. If you want us to go deeper on any of the brands in this video, drop it in the comments and we will look at it. Subscribe if this is the kind of thing you want to know more of. New video every week on what is actually in the Irish food and drink aisle.